All right, guys, just wrapped up an epic episode with Adam and Harvey here, and we talked all things recruitment and placement of individuals into your organization. And I think this is going to be really beneficial for you if you're looking for maybe contractors, team members to come inside of your organization and help you overall. Also, if you're in a position where you want to actually develop and grow in your career and learn how to place and position yourself in the best way to get the best success with the next company, massive value bombs dropped inside of this episode. Hope you guys enjoy. Adam, Harvey, guys, thanks for spending some time with me this morning. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do in this business. I'm super excited to learn a little bit about it.
So we're Harwell Consulting. We're a professional recruitment agency based on the Gold Coast, predominantly serving Southeast Queensland. What we're best known for is construction management, our labour hire division, and Harvey runs senior finance, account support, and all business support. Generally, what we're trying to do is become the recruitment partner for small to medium size companies across Southeast Queensland, and we've even got some ASX and global listed organisations too. So we want to be the go-to guys that call when they need to hire someone.
Love the way you said professional as well.
Tell me a little bit about how you started this company, because I know we were speaking earlier, and this is a newer company, 18 months old, I think it is. So I'd love to learn about how it started, and also what some of the things that have happened over the last 18 months, because I'm sure there's been a lot.
Yeah, it's felt like a bit of a whirlwind. We were working in a global agency. So Ads was there first. He spent a few years there, managed to get me in. After knocking on the director's door and getting a fair few no's, she finally agreed to meet me. Right. So then I obviously came into the business, learnt the industry. We'd never done recruitment, either of us, before we got into that company. It was always a plan, wasn't it? It was always the kind of pipeline dream to go out on our own one day. But people who had done it before us, it's always 10 years experience, 15 years experience. So it was a long way away for us. And then I think you were at a New Year's party the one year, having a few beers with a few lads.
That doesn't sound like me.
Best way for a business plan to come up.
And I think you were there with the lads that have started Urtech, and they're probably 2 years ahead of us, and they were telling him about it. And I get these drunk texts like, mate, we're doing it. We've got to do it. And I was just like, yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
Yeah. And do you guys any business experience prior at all, or this is the first time getting into something like this?
Yeah, absolutely zero. Even now, I still feel like we don't know a lot. We do when we reflect, but zero business experience. And
it only gets worse.
Yeah, it does. The more you know, the less you know.
realise.
So now we're very green.
Yeah. What was it like in terms of that? And so essentially, you guys went from working in a company, like a high level professional firm, into starting your own company. How was that transition piece initially? That initial step into doing it for your own?
Hard, but not hard at the same time. We are lucky that we partnered with the guys ex-Recruiter, and their business model is they help recruiters like us start their own business and provide some back office services effectively. Got it. So we can kind of plug in and play. But probably what we didn't consider is when you're in a large company, you're very protected. Like you process a placement in the system and you never see that again. You don't have to send the invoice out, proof the invoice, do the collections or anything like that.
Right.
So that was probably the biggest eye opener for us. Although we did have the support, it was actually being exposed to everything that happened behind the scenes. Because as I said before, you just hit the button and it's gone and you go on to the next job.
Do you think that you guys have very different skill sets in terms of like I always think about business partnerships that work really well, and I'm always like one side should cover one particular area of skills, other side should be another area of skills. Do you guys kind of do that and complement each other in that way?
Absolutely. We actually had a conversation in the car this morning talking about this new business unit that we want to run, and I'm full steam ahead. Harv's a bit slow. So we're like,
come on,
mate,
man.
Calculated, mate.
We were like, if it was just one of us.
Accurate, precise.
If it was individually, I'd start the business and be bust in a week. And if it was halves, he'd never get started anyway. So we balance each other out where I'll not say to come up with the idea, but I'll push heavily. And
You're the fire starter.
Yeah, but halves are like, okay, what have you missed? What are the blind spots? What's the cash flow? And between the two of us and other mentors as well, we normally get to the right outcome. Whether that's to do the business or not, it's the right decision.
Yeah, I think it's because obviously I recruit heavily in the finance space. So I'm speaking this terminology and speaking to these people every single day. So it's a good balance. Ads is the one that keeps us moving forward. And then, some things we know we don't need to do too much due diligence on. So it's like, pull the trigger. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But this one in particular would be a massive, massive investment. So that's why I'm like, slow us down. Let's make sure we're not busting 6 months, mate.
Even the people management side of it as well. I mean, that's probably a really key area where If we look talking about DISC, I'm that D personality type.
Yep.
Very results orientated, driven, logical. Dickhead, they could say as well. The team would definitely say that.
Someone's going to be.
Yeah. As Harv's maybe being a father, it's come into in the last couple of years, a lot more nurturing, a lot more understanding, a lot more patient, empathetic, sympathetic. So naturally kind of takes on that role.
Nice, yeah.
Whereas I like to think I kind of more lead by example with my work ethic, the way I speak to clients, the way I work with candidates. So again, without the other one, we wouldn't be half the business that we are today.
So cool. So cool to have that, because like I think what you said before in terms of like my experienced business partners and stuff like that. And I know like if you can nail it and it works well, like it's so valuable, because it's almost like you're able to not think about all the things that are your deficiencies and weak spots and be like, all right, you've got this, let's roll. You know, so do you think it's been a pretty powerful part in terms of the success you've had?
Yeah, it's a blessing in disguise, I think. You know, yes, we're friends, but we probably don't see each other as friends. You know, we met when we were 14.
You seem pretty friendly.
Okay.
You seem pretty friendly.
Yeah, we met when we were 14 back in England. So it's a very, very tight bond that won't be broken. And I say to the guys, like, if Ads has done something that's pissed you off, don't feel like you can't come to me because I'm his friend. If anything, that's a reason you can come to me, because the way we operate with each other is we just call it out. Absolutely no bullshit. If I've done something that's annoying him or vice versa, we just call it out, talk about it. How can we, solve it and move on?
Nice. What skill sets do you think that you developed maybe prior to, or you brought maybe to this business that's really helped you in terms of like actually generating the results that you've got?
Mate, I've had a hell of a journey. I used to stand in Pack Fair giving out scratch cards for timeshare.
Oh, wow.
I've done the inside of that, so being in the appointments when they're in there as well, and you're trying to get this couple who are on holiday from fucking sunny coast down and trying to sell them into a timeshare club. So 90 minutes, you've got to get them through this presentation and to committing 20, 25 grand on this holiday club.
Wow.
I used to come out, so obviously people are closed off, right? They know you're going to come and sell to them. So what I do to break the ice a little bit, I come out with the, the flower like necklaces that you get in Hawaii.
Yes.
I come on, happy holidays. And I've got this grumpy old man sat there in the waiting room with a flowery necklace on. And then look, we might win some, we might not, but just that kind of experience where people don't want to speak to you. You've got to kind of break them down, warm them up, build the trust, let them know that you're just here to see if this could work. If it's not, there's your holiday.
What about those scratch card shifts, those, right? Because it's weird, because this guy now, his work ethic is second to none. Like, he will sit there punching out all day, but it was a 4-hour shift selling scratch cards, and he would turn up an hour late and leave an hour early.
There's actually a really powerful story to that, though. I think it's about finding passion, right? I did not give a shit about giving out scratch cards.
Interesting.
But now, as I've said, like, we work here 12 hours a day and go home, still bounce through the door, because we absolutely love it.
So do you think that if people would have looked at you maybe when you were younger, they would have been like, this guy's going to be successful? Like, was there certain kind of behaviors that you were exhibiting maybe when you were younger or when you were earlier in your years, maybe when working, et cetera, that you'd be like, probably going to be something that comes out of this guy?
I think our football background's a massive part of it. We played at a decent level back in England, and it's cutthroat over there. It's dog eat dog. It's not nice in terms of the way you've kind of got to put yourself ahead of people. You cop a lot of shit from the older, more senior players you've got to deal with. The chat in the changing rooms is pretty brutal and pretty below the belt. So you've got to be quick on your feet, quick-witted. Right. So I think there's so many soft skills that you learn there in high-pressure environments that when you come into business, sales, normal life, you kind of do feel like you've got the edge on people. You know the level it takes to go and be that 1%.
Yeah. Dealing with the pressure as well. Like Ad said, it's a very cutthroat environment, and 2 or 3 bad performances in a row, you could be done in a manager's eyes. And I think as well, it's not just you turn 18 or turn 16 and they go, hey, here's a professional contract. They're putting the building blocks in from when you're like age 10, 11, 12, or from whenever you get into the system. So I guess looking that into the business sense, you're always thinking that bigger picture. You're always having to consider the long-term goal and how are the decisions I make now at 12, where you have zero life skills or experience, how's that going to implement me potentially getting a professional contract or not at the age of 16? So I think that probably gets you going through experiences and learnings that most people probably don't experience until they're 18 or 19.
So you mentioned like dealing with pressure. What kind of pressures do you guys feel like you faced in the company?
For right now, Harwell?
Yeah, like over the last 18 months.
Cash flow has definitely been one. So we've grown from me and Harvey at the kitchen table at my house, on day one to now 18 months later in our second new office, because we've grown to a team of 7. That's 5 of mouths to feed, 5 people who rely on us to have the money in the bank so they can pay the mortgage, feed the dog, feed their kids. We've never been dangerously tight, but it's always a consideration.
Yeah.
And it's always a what if, right? Great, we've got clients now and we're doing a good job now, but what if? So there's that pressure. And I think the biggest one for me is that intrinsic pressure. I know what I expect of myself. I know the level that I need to be at to be happy with the performance I'm doing. And I know kind of the life I want to build for me, my fiance, potentially future kids, Murphy, my Labrador, and even the pressure to not let Harvey down as well. I think that's really powerful in having a business partner where he busts his ass. If I'm coming in here half-assing it, I'm the worst bloke in the world in my eyes. Like if he's giving absolutely everything for something we built together and I'm not doing my bit, I wouldn't be able to look myself in the eye.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that Ad said. Probably one extra to add to that would be, I feel like a few people wanted us to fail or thought that we would fail at the start. As I mentioned earlier, most people that did what we did, they do it with 10, 15 years experience. And we were probably in their eyes, two cocky lads that had come in, got a few years under their belt and thought, oh, we can do this for ourselves.
Sure.
So I do feel like from the outset, there was probably people that expected us to fail or wanted us to fail. So it was the pressure of, I ain't letting them win. Absolutely not. They're not going to sit there on the high horse and go, we knew it.
Yeah. What challenges do you think you guys will need to face together? Like in terms of the future, obviously like 18 months in business, it seems like from my understanding, you guys have had a good run in terms of like reasonably quick start. We're in a good position, growing quickly. Like are there things that you're like, that's going to be a problem in the future? I can see us like, coming into contact with that and we're going to need to be prepared. Are there things that come up?
I think focus is a big one. So many opportunities come your way. I think there's a great saying is, I can't remember what the saying is now. It's something about.
It must be great.
It's something about something becoming dressed as an opportunity is anyway.
Oh, the red dress. Woman in the red dress.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Glad you're yourself.
You nailed that, mate. Well done.
So focus, right? So there are opportunities that come our way. The things that we think, if we get that right, we'll make X amount. How good? But is that going to take us away from our core business, core values, what we're good at, what our superpower is? Is it the right decision or not? You'll only really know by doing it or choosing not to and seeing where you end up. So focus, I think, is a big one. And I think people, right? Me and Harves can do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a period of time. But until we get the right teams in place with the right structure, the right processes, and people who are on the boat and want to go to that North Star where we set the mission to, that's where the compounding effect and real success can come from for us.
Yeah. With respect to like recruiting, so like what you do, let's say for example, people are listening and they, they want to maybe improve their process of recruiting the right people, right? They're like you're growing in their company and they're like, I want to find some great talent. Is there a process, that you might recommend or a process that like companies could follow to be like, we could probably find better talent, or we could probably bring in better talent, or we probably could lower our attrition in the company? Is there some things that you might recommend around that?
Yeah, how long have we got, mate?
I mean, this is a selfish question, but I also think that it's something that a lot of companies, like how the recruiting process is developed is this. Hop on an interview, ask some random questions to an individual that feels really uncomfortable. You feel really uncomfortable asking random questions. And you both look at each other and have no idea what you're trying to get out of the outcome. Yeah. And then you just sit there and you're like, we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like what do you guys use as a framework? How do you become successful in like finding the right candidates? What's the steps? What's the process? What's some of the red flags? Like I'd love to unpack that. Yeah.
So we obviously have a very detailed process that we follow in-house. We actually did a talk for EmploySure, a massive HR firm.
I use them,
yeah. So we did a talk for multiple business owners, internal HR recruiters, and we actually put together a document of how they can be better, which obviously we're happy to share with yourself. But the big thing for us is, one, be upfront and honest with what the role is and what the company is from the start. Don't sell the dream and then walking into something that's absolutely not the dream.
Yep.
But probably before you even go and sit down in front of someone, build a clear picture in your mind of what you're actually looking for, what you need, what are the good parts about it, what are the shit parts? Because ultimately people leave because of the shit parts.
True.
And then from there, a very in-depth process. So I'd be two-stage interviewing absolutely everyone. Right. I'd base one of those around more so the technical side of the role, the company information, their experience.
So first things first would be like a technical interview, would you say, or like a specific skill set and then culture or something after, or how do you do that?
There's no written rule, really. No rule, some companies will go in and dive in and go, okay, I need to make sure technically you're in the right stratosphere before we continue this process. Because if I can not waste your time and my time within half an hour, then brilliant. Other people go the other side and go, first, I need to make sure you're the right culture fit for my business before I sit down and really drill into the role, the measurables, what we want you to achieve after 1, 2, 3 years. So there's no written rule. What are your thoughts?
I think there's a bit of a feeling it needs to be this big game of cat and mouse with an interview.
Yeah.
Whereas really the best ones are, this is what I'm looking for. These are the 3 areas I needed to talk to in the interview. Let them know beforehand.
What do you mean by that?
So say you're looking for a sales manager. I'm making it up. You're going to have to know about e-commerce, analytics for social media ads.
Got it.
This is, if you can nail these 3 questions, that's going to get you a long way. And let them prepare. Let them know the questions coming.
All right.
That's what we're looking for, right? Rather than put them on the spot, unless that's a really important part of the role. Okay, great. These are the 3 areas I want to know about. So when you come to the interview, be prepared to answer about your experience for them.
Do you ever do group interviews?
No.
I've been the other side of one before, full on. I can understand why you do it in a sales role, in a recruitment role, getting my job. Can you think on your feet? How do you react to other people? But if I was hiring for anything that's kind of operational or the more senior exec, it's not really what you want.
Make sense.
I think
you're doing.
I think you're forcing people to put a bit of an act on. It's like, how can I stand out? Because some of the best salespeople in the industry are S personality types, females, right? But you put that same S personality type female in a room of 10 in a group interview where 9 of the others are blokes.
Yeah.
They're not going to be the one that's coming to the front necessarily and really standing out. So I don't love them.
Right. I'm asking because I used to do a lot of group interviews. I'd bring like 10 salespeople onto a meeting and then I would like ask them a whole bunch of questions that they had to answer like on the spot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want them to, have the information like right in front of them. I don't want to have them the opportunity to prepare. I want to see the truth of this individual. And I used to think it was effective, and you look at the outcomes of what was produced and it's like super high pressure, probably a lot of stress. I don't know if it's the best outcome.
Well, what the person who does really well in that interview, what kind of salesperson is he going to be?
Oh, well, they're like a hard D type individual that just like,
pressure, salesy.
Exactly.
So that's not what you want in your business. It's probably a bit of a bad way to start.
And there are definitely qualities, as you mentioned, just dealing with objections quite quickly, thinking on your feet. There are absolutely qualities that you can pull out through those situations.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a lot of qualities that you might miss or unearth about someone that could also be just as important to your role or business as well.
Have you guys, in terms of like the placements that you'll have with candidates into particular roles, in terms of your probability or your like likelihood of there being success with that candidate, like is it like, has it got higher and higher and higher in terms of the point of view? I mean, we discussed earlier, like art and science. Like the art aspect must be the human connection aspect, I assume. And then the science is like, asking the right questions, going through the right process, the surgical kind of nature of it. So has the placement of candidates gotten higher in terms of the accuracy of the fit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing we put a lot of importance on when we started Harwell, which wasn't really a thing in our old agency, was the level of detail you go up front with the client. So we put together now 2, 3, 4 page briefs of
the role,
of the company, the role, the person, the projects, the culture, the values, the systems.
Right.
Everything's down on paper, which does 2 things. It disqualifies clients who don't want to give you that 45 minutes because they don't think it's important. So the time wasters, we don't work with them.
Got it.
And then when you've got that level of detail, now you can actually start to measure candidates against something where you've got a bit of depth rather than just 3 bullet points of you need to have this, this, and this. And there's so many grey areas and room for error. So that's been massive for us. And then the client knows when we are speaking to candidates and we're sending them a shortlist, they know that we know the detail that they need. So really it's just about risk management, right? We've taken out so much risk and unknown by doing that level of job brief. The candidate then gets this incredibly beautiful document that we put together with so much information. Wow, this client's serious about finding the right person. So they're more committed and they're more favourable of our job compared to Joe Bloggs is next door.
Right.
So that just that general feeling to the whole process, they know whatever time they give us and interest they give us, they're going to get a return from it.
At what point would you say like why would someone use, I'd like to just put some disparity around, for example, using like a recruiter, say for example, I'm a company, I'm looking for a role right now and I'm like, I'm really interested in finding this position. I'm going through the seek process. I'm filtering through all the candidates. Like what's the difference between doing that process versus using a recruiter? And then why would someone be like, because I guess maybe there's like that, oh, it's really expensive and all these kinds of things. So like what's the difference between using those 2 mechanisms, I guess?
Multiple different reasons. I guess on paper, we work with companies from small mum and dad founder companies where the owner is still very hands-on in the business.
Right.
So they don't have the time or even the expertise. So they'll come and outsource to us. We work with some mid-sized companies on the Gold Coast, kind of anywhere between 50 to 250 million a year turnover. They'll most definitely have an internal HR team, but potentially not a specialist internal recruiter. So they might come to us still for the time piece, but also they come to us for the highly technical roles where they're struggling to find the right skill set. And then we work with $1 billion companies on the Gold Coast who do have massive recruitment teams. But on Seek, you're only going to access 10 to 15% of the market. So only 10 to 15% that is what we call active, that are actually on the Seek job ads, hit and apply. And we often find the gold is on the people that they're not necessarily looking, they're not desperate to get out of a company, but for the right opportunity, they're open. So they're the sorts of people we go and tap on the shoulders and say, hey, this is a role we're working on. This is a company. Are you open to a move? Can we tell you a bit about it? So they're probably the different pronged approaches where we'd.
I couldn't have said that better myself. He's absolutely nailed that.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, right? Interesting, because I've used numbers of different recruiters over the years, and it's always like the benefit that I'm always looking for is like the speed aspect, and then that specialization. Which, in terms of what you guys do as far as the brief and the detail in that brief, that sounds like you being able to really find the right individual through disqualifying like the wrong people. Yeah,
and there is an art to it. And I know there's no formal qualification, for example, but we made a funny video early on. Like ads was like, my toilet broke the other day and I tried to fix it myself and got covered in shit, right?
That's class.
So good.
You can absolutely try and do it yourself, but ultimately we do this for 50, 60 hours a week, every single week over nearly half a decade now. So we've met with hundreds of companies. We've spoken to thousands of candidates. So there is the part where we just get a knack for it. And we've got a bullshit radar that you might not be able to pick up on. So there is that element to it as well.
What's an example of a placement that you thought was like, this is the best thing, and it went horribly wrong? Like, is there something like that where you're like, it's a sure thing, this person's perfect for the role, and then it just fell apart, or it wasn't what it seemed? Is there anything like that you guys can think of?
I'm struggling thinking of a great example, but I think the big one is always where it's this perfect person. First interview, great, nailed it. Second interview, nailed it. And you don't then go to the level of detail in your process because you assume. Right. You think, great, everyone loves each other. You get to the back end and offer, great, I've actually just got 3 other interviews this week and they're all paying more money. Oh shit, because I didn't ask that question at first interview, second interview, but at trial close. How's this role stacking up to the others, what you got going on? If they offer you the 100 grand as discussed, will you accept? And if there's a no throughout that process, you either stop, you dive a bit deeper, you might look for other options. I'll try and think of a funny story along the way, but that's the big one. I think it's when you get too cocky and too confident in the person and it feels really good, you lose the little 1%, and that's where it fucks you. And what we've kind of got to a point now of you can do the process 100%, it still doesn't work, right? We're not we're not selling paper. We're selling people.
Yeah, so many nuances.
People change their mind, situations change, there's counter offers, all sorts. So as long as we can look at each other and go, we did every single step 100% right, it didn't work, that's one for the recruitment gods, we say. We'll get the next one.
The recruitment gods. And he gets down on his knees in praise after.
Yeah, it's a pray, mate, be careful.
What are some questions like that you would recommend in an interview process? Like I'm like sitting there and I'm like, I'd love to make sure that I can get the right candidate. Like how would you recommend conducting that overall? And then say we've got a really good brief and like this is exactly what the role outlines. The person's aware of the specifics. I've got some horrible examples of like people that I hired for this role. It was a bait and switch, and then like 2 years later, she told me the first day that she was on in our training room. At lunch, she called her mum and she was like, Mum, I'm so unhappy. And she was crying because it was like, she was told this thing. Then she came into the actual like training and it was like, it wasn't that thing. And she's an amazing team member now. Like we love her in the team. But I was like, that's so bad. You know what I mean? Like what questions or what things would you recommend going through in terms of just helping? Because ultimately like you're a matchmaker, you're aligning the person's expectations with what the company needs. So how would you do that best?
I don't think there's this cliche question of if there's how many windows are there in New York City? I don't think that's the approach to go at all. For me, it's depth. So you'd start with an open question. Tell me about your experience relating to e-commerce.
Got it.
Great. All right, now tell me about this specific part. Tell me more. How did you react when this happened? So it's really the depth you're trying to get to, rather than asking all these surface level questions about so many different parts. And then to do that, though, you've got to know what's most important to you as well, in terms of the person you're trying to hire. So it's probably not a sexy answer, but it's probably the most valuable.
Not like ask this one question.
Yeah, I think it'd be quite situational as well. Like if you, as a founder of a business, are in hiring your first head of marketing, right, and you might not be as technically knowledgeable in marketing as what this person is, you can sit down and go, hey, here's the clear expectation of what I think the role is. Maybe you put them on their feet and say, hey, do you think I've missed anything, or what are the potential struggles you see for someone coming into this role, because that's not just going to be, here's what I want. Have you done X, Y, Z? And they go, yes, Sasha, I've done that. Perfect. Brilliant. Off we go. You're getting them picturing themselves in the role and thinking on their feet. But also, you might just unearth something that you didn't consider. True. You go, shit, when I sit down with the next 3 people, that's something I need to discuss as well.
How do you think founders can also remove some of the like awkwardness and weirdness out of the process? Like I know for myself, like some of those interview processes, I'm asking a whole bunch of questions and I'm kind of like going through them. I'm like, is there something more I should be asking? Is there some exercises I should be getting them to do? Like, you know what I mean? Is there a way to just make it feel, you mentioned like being direct or something, like is there some way to make it a little bit more of a smoother process, or is it just doing more reps and having more conversations?
I think it's starting with you and your company. What's your story? Why did you start the business? Where is it today? What's the future? What's the vision? What's the journey? What are some of the challenges that you're trying to overcome?
Right.
So then that gives them something to answer the questions to. Rather than,
I see what you're saying. So set that as like almost like a bit of a North Star of like, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is the direction.
And be a bit vulnerable as well. Just say, look, we're not perfect. We're not Apple, we're not Tesla, whatever it is, right? These are some things that we're struggling with trying to overcome. And just go, look, what's your experience been in growing from 10 to 20 people or whatever kind of the metric is. But I think the vulnerability is probably a really good answer for that is if you're coming in as this big hotshot CEO whose shit doesn't stink, they're probably not going to be able to get the warmth and the connection with you, which... And at the end of the day is what people are going to be joining the company for, along with the money and the progression. They want to relate to the person they're working with.
I like to take the seriousness out of the situation. So I think back to when we run people through our process, we have a 2-stage process. We do an initial pre-screen over the phone, and then we do a sit-down face-to-face.
Right.
What I love to do on a sit-down face-to-face is take them for a coffee, not bring them in here and grill them as if it was an interview. And even when we've hired people, it's always been, let's go and sit down for a coffee. Because I think what that does, it gets them comfortable and you start to learn about them as a person, and they'll open up and actually be themselves more. Like there are some people out there that are very, very good actors and they can interview very, very well and they get into the role and they are absolutely not what they said they were. So I think taking that seriousness of that, the old school boardroom approach, a panel of 3 interviewers, that's where I think sometimes people might shit themselves and go into their shell or put on a bravado that's not there.
Yeah, well, what's some of the biggest mistakes you've made through like finding candidates, placing candidates, like learning different things that have helped you maybe to develop like the acumen that you have now?
It's always cutting corners. Whenever you think you can skip a little step here or maybe not meet them face to face, that's always the thing that bites in the ass. I think we've learned the hard way of just do the right process every single time. Probably not digging deep enough in terms of references, informal references. That's probably one thing we do a little bit different to other agencies is rather than a full reference, we do an informal reference early on in the piece. That might be, hey, I just want to speak to your old boss about what your superpower is, the tangible impact you had on his life and the results of the business. 3 bullet points, nice and easy. If that aligns with what your current gut feeling is about the person, you're onto a winner. If they can't give you a contact, that's a bit of a red flag.
Of course. What do you think about those on the resume, references available upon request? Like, is that a red flag or is that like, that's okay?
Yeah, more than fair, I think.
More than fair?
Yeah. I think there are companies out there that will go and contact references without permission. And if someone doesn't know your situation, you're potentially still working with an employer.
Right.
And you call them and go, hey, mate, just interviewing Dave next week. And they're going, oh, Dave's looking for a new job, is he? Right, so I think it's more a protection piece as well. Okay. And a lot of people like to give their referees a heads up. Just say, hey, Sasha's going to give you a call. I've interviewed for a sales manager role with him.
Yeah, understood. And so what about on the candidate side? Like for a candidate to maybe like, say for example, they're looking for a new role, they're looking for something to progress into or do better. How can they, really crush it at that process as well in terms of getting from where they are now to where they want to be and land like their dream company? Are there some things that you've observed through that process as well?
Preparation and engagement, it's massive. Even on the
explain that. Engagement.
So preparation in terms of do your preparation on your own CV, on your own information, your storytelling as well. Right. There's so many times we ask a question, let's give us a helicopter view of you and your experience. And they kind of stumble their way through and it's not really clear. They haven't really thought about it. Whereas then you get someone who gives you a really clean, concise, well-flowed description of their journey. And you go, great, you're taking this seriously. You know exactly what value you can bring. Right. And that's probably the first step, the engagement piece. For us, it becomes a bit of a red flag if we're calling and there's no answer and then we're calling again and again. Or, the communication is a little bit shoddy because we're going, okay, when this gets to the crunch time of negotiating dollars and cents and start dates and medical and relocation, we need better engagement. So that's always a bit of a tell I've found of how serious someone is. And then when they get to the interview stage as well, same thing, the preparation of the company, right? And that's where we come in. We kind of guide people through this. We don't just go, oh, I haven't prepared, you're crap. It's on us to get you to that level, to be prepared.
Got it.
As well.
Real life examples as well is a huge one. So that's why we prepare them and say, hey, your role here was quite similar to this role. So start thinking about what your processes were, what your achievements were in X, Y, Z. And it's similar to the way, you sell your business. When your guys are doing their onboarding calls, they're not just saying, oh, we help people start e-com brands. They're going to go, hey, we work with Naira. She was at 10K sales a month, and now we've built her to 250K sales a month. So it's that storytelling piece of, an accountant walking in, hey, when I joined, Joe Bloggs, the builder, there was absolutely zero end of month process, and I implemented that and rewrote that from scratch, and this is how I did it. So then you can go, oh, okay, yeah, so that's somewhere we need to be better. So you can directly transfer that model you use there into my business, and I can see the actual value and result of that.
So it's really just like sales 101, like everything you sales, like it's like sales communication, understanding human beings. Have you guys done much sales training or understanding like human beings? You guys seem very well versed in that space.
Shitloads, yeah. And probably something that we dipped our toe into when we were working for a company, because there was internal training, but it was very archaic, very traditional, this is how it was done back in the day.
Of course.
So when we started Harwell, that's something, and I think that comes from the football background of being coachable, wanting to learn.
Yeah, of course.
We spent probably too much money early doors. We made a bit in the first couple of months. We went and spent 20 grand on a boot camp with Swish, and we thought, 20
Before
grand,
we paid ourselves, wasn't
it? 20 grand is a shitload of money, but we could see without that, the opportunity cost is going to be well beyond 20K, right? And it was, to be fair, it's paid off. But the Swish kind of sales and communications training, we do a lot of recruitment specific stuff with Matt Cossins, who's a bit of a recruitment legend, grown and scaled and sold businesses and really knows his stuff and can bring different concepts of sales and communication into recruitment specific training, which is powerful. We try and teach the team as well on our kind of experience and the way we do things too, and the kind of the Harwell way. So we try a multifaceted approach, don't we?
Yeah, I think the big one for us, and again, thinking back, it's something it was never a focus in our old employer, was just like human behavior in general and different personality types. I'd hate to think the amount of people I lost along the way because they might have been a C or an S personality type, and they needed more data about the role and they needed a bit more nurturing and time to sit on a decision. Whereas I've been talking to them like a D, where you want clear outcomes. So we've invested a lot of training into learning that side of things as well. So one, as a client, we know how to operate with you. You don't need a big, massive pitch. You just want to know the top 3 things they've achieved, and you go, "Yep, I'll meet that person." But also, candidate as well, guiding them process, giving them more info and data on the company, because then they feel a lot more relaxed coming in and sitting in front of you.
And even that prep, right? Okay, you're meeting with Sasha, right? He doesn't need to know your life story. He doesn't need to know how many cats you've got.
Please don't tell me the life story.
What he wants to know is you came in at zero, you got into $1 million, you did this, this, and this.
Yeah.
That's what he wants to know. Focus on that.
Is that obvious?
Kind of, mate. You're a bit cold-hearted, a bit brutal. That's what your wife said anyway.
Mate, you don't scale business as quickly as what you are.
Interesting. Can you unpack the DISC model just based on how you guys use it? Because I think I understand it reasonably well. Sometimes I struggle to articulate it. So if you guys maybe can just unpack it a little bit in terms of how you use it.
Yeah, big time. So really what is the personality type the person we're speaking to, right? So I'm a D, Harvey's more of a C. That's dominant and conscientious, not dickhead and
other C word.
So really just being aware, and that's all it is, a bit of awareness. It's actually stopping, and the fast-paced nature of business, you kind of just roll and roll and roll.
Yeah.
Right, actually, I'm sitting down with Harvey and Sasha today, right? Sasha's going to want this from me, being direct, results-orientated. Harvey's going to want to take some time to digest, know he can trust me, know that I'm going to be here when things get tough. So how we use that, it's not really a kind of a measurable system or process we've got. It's really just that awareness piece of who am I speaking to, even communication style, the way you write an email might be completely different. I personally use a lot of bullet points in my emails.
Right, okay.
Harvey might do a little bit more of a longer text and a bit more detailed. Right. So it goes so micro, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the main way we use it is we try and identify within 5 minutes of meeting someone what personality type you are. So we know not how to win you over or trick you, but how can we best service you.
Got it.
So that's definitely one thing. But even we've used it onboarding our staff, but also advised clients on how to onboard their staff as well.
Right.
So I might say to you, hey, Joe's an S personality type. So she's very, very process driven. She needs to see things from start to finish and know all the steps she's going to follow. So if you throw her in at the deep end into a sales environment, that's probably going to make her feel really uncomfortable, and you might lose her along the way.
So you guys use your knowledge and understanding of like what you've developed from that candidate as well, right through into like that initial onboarding into the company as well, to set them up for success. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's something we've got prepared as well by working with Jess Cameron, who you might be aware of as well, mindset and performance coach. Because a lot of recruitment is up to the point of contract or start
Correct.
date.
Yeah.
Which there's so much that goes wrong. And yes, we have an aftercare process. We stay in touch for 90 days.
Right.
But what we started saying to our clients is this onboarding kind of document where, say you start on the Monday, on the Friday, you as the hiring manager, the founder, are going to take that person for a coffee.
Oh, wow.
And you're going to run through these kind of 4, 5, 6 questions. And they're, okay, when you're under pressure and feeling under the pump, how does that look? So I can recognize that. How should I manage you best? One that I absolutely love, it's what's going to be the one reason you quit this job?
Wow, interesting.
How powerful is that? I know when she told us to say it to our staff, I'm like, well, fuck, what if they just quit on the spot? What are we going to do? But the answers were, if I'm not feeling supported, if I don't feel like I'm a welcome member of the team, if I ever feel like I'm letting people down. So now we know what to look out for.
Right.
As well.
So you asked this over the first weekend?
Yeah, ideally kind of the Friday or the following week, depending on schedules, but early days, early enough. Interesting. So they've had their time to settle in. Hopefully they're still there if the recruiter or you've done a good job yourself.
Even the question's something like, okay, if you've done something wrong or I need to give you some constructive feedback, how do I best do that?
Yeah.
Some people go, mate, just come and tell me straight. Perfect. You're not going to sit on that for 3 weeks and go, shit, they're only, 1 week into the new job. I don't want to knock it out of their sales. You know that they're going to respond really well. Whereas someone else might go, I need this to be a bit more constructive, or come to me with the issue, but come to me with how I can be better.
Right.
So there's different ways to do that as well.
Interesting. What other things can we do to set people up for success in that first 90 days? That sounds. I've not heard that before. I mean, and maybe those check-in meetings, but not structured around that in terms of whether it is like a coffee, going through some of those questions and things. I really like that concept. I think that's very, very helpful. Are there some other things that we can do to really make sure those first 90 days are supportive for people and we can have the best results?
You try and provide them as much of a roadmap as you can, whether that's 90 days, whether that's 6 months or even 12 months. Like one question we have, to you as a business owner who we're recruiting for in our onboarding is, what does success look like from this role after 12 months, 2 years, 3 years? So you can then give them tangible targets and say, hey, within 6 months, this would be awesome if we've implemented X, Y, Z. So they've got some clear direction to work towards.
Right, got it. What about you? Anything else on that?
Yeah, that's a great one. I think scheduled feedback sessions is important as well. Even if it is in 90 days, at least they know that's coming and they know that they've got a platform to hear about it. Because I think the hardest thing is the miscommunication. Is if you've got bad feedback to give, you don't necessarily want to give it because you don't want to look like a dick. You don't want to lose them. If you've got positive feedback, maybe you don't share that enough or frequently or in the way it's received by them too. So I think knowing what the key metrics are for success in the first 90 days and then having a time in the diary to sit down and reflect on that is powerful and just gives you that bit of guidance, right? Because ideally someone's joining your company for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what point do you get to the 90 days, the 6 months, the 12 months, right? So it gives that little checkpoints and check-in parts, which it sounds also simple.
It does, yeah.
But as we all know, life gets busy, things get on. The reason you're hiring someone is probably because you've got too much work or there's someone's left that you're stressed.
Exactly.
So be able to slow things down, that's where the real value comes. And the companies that we work with who do it the best, they've got the best reputation in the market. They get the best quality of candidate,
And so if we were to look at best company kind of protocol in terms of ideal, you're going to, actually place this person into this company. They're fantastic. They're going to have amazing success. The company's going to do all the right things versus this company, going to be challenging. I might get a call in 2 weeks and there's going to be problems. What are they doing in terms of the company side of things that's giving those people the best environment versus the worst environment?
There's loads, isn't there?
Yeah. Just maybe a couple of
There's a lot. Probably one thing we can do or can advise on now is how, if it is a very challenging or difficult environment, I think we go back to the start, is framing that and being very honest.
Very challenging.
Because then that person knows, okay, you're coming into a really difficult environment. Here's what we need you to fix early on, but this is the end goal. So as long as they come in with the mindset, you'll go into some meetings going, fuck, this one's going to be a toughie or this is going to be a nice one. So that's it. Culture piece, turnover, it's something that you happen. The bigger the company, perhaps the more we see. External factors, the economy, different industries.
Yeah.
It's hard to put your finger on one thing.
Yeah.
I think the level, in from a recruitment perspective as well, if they use 10 recruiters, and then everyone's talking about Bob the Builder's company to everyone in the market, even if they're a good company. Just why am I hearing about this same company hiring all the time? They start to get that little funny feeling in the gut.
Interesting.
So I think the way you recruit has a massive impact on the person you get, but also the reputation in the market of the company as well. So my advice is just use us, or if you're not going to do
the link below.
choose one or two, at the absolute most, 3 recruiters who you've given them the time of day to learn your business, understand the culture, the structure, the process, and then give them time to go and find the people.
Yeah. And so just on that point, so because like I get a lot of messages from a lot of different recruiters on LinkedIn, different cold emails being like, we can find you all the candidates. Like, how would I know that I'm using a good recruiter? Like I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, well, sure, you can have my business. You can find me some candidates. Are they going to be good people? How do I know they actually understand what questions should that person be asking, or what should that process look like to onboard me as a company to be like, I feel really confident you're going to actually find the right people for me. You know?
I think authenticity. For me, I don't know how any recruiter can approach you without knowing you or your business and say, I can find you perfect candidates.
Right.
They're lying to you.
Right.
The conversation should be, hey, mate, I've helped XYZ companies in a similar industry.
Right.
I've created value for them this way. I think you could be the right people to help you, but I need to sit down with you for half an hour to actually explore why. That would be problem number 1 for me.
Yeah. No face-to-face contact. If it's interstate, even a Teams call,
right.
Get that brief written up, and you'll know from the questions they're asking on the brief if they've got the depth of understanding to go and find the right person.
Right.
And then you've got to trust them. Like they're going to be talking about your baby, Ecom Capital, whatever it business is, to the market. You've got if they don't know what they're talking about, that's a direct negative impact on you and the business you've built.
I think one thing we're seeing a lot at the moment, because the market has tightened, is a lot of people are trying to, as I'd said earlier, cut corners on their processes. So they might not sit down and do a deep dive with a person. So if they're presenting a resume, just call them and say, hey, mate, when you sat down with them, what were the 3 things that impressed you most from that meeting? And you'll know exactly then whether they've met you or not.
My favourite question is, so you've got Bob Jeffrey's CV here, great. What does he look like? 50% of people will go, oh, you Bob brown hair, because they've never met him. They've just found a CV, give him a 5-minute call and flicked it across. And now they're trying to charge 20, 25 grand.
Jesus. Yeah. Thank you for that.
That's a gold one, mate. What do they look like? Wow. And then if they flap, delete the number. Never speak to them again.
Wow. That's insane. It makes complete sense though, I guess, just from because on the receiving end as a company, you get a CV and it looks good. You're like, okay, how am I supposed to know?
And you'd assume that person's...
It's gone through a rigorous
they've done the work. That's
process.
What I'm getting sent.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Sometimes it's like we've got great tools, right? We can search keywords, we can search this and that and find a good long list of people who tick the boxes on a few fronts.
Yeah.
But then really the value comes from bringing that off the page, bringing it to life. I know this is what Sasha's culture and values are about. I know the growth. I know what this person needs to be to then be confident to send him to you. Whereas if they're only just getting that CV and it's half right, I could send it to Sasha if you made some great. If not, minimum investment, right?
Easy bill, right? Wow. Yeah. Well, like in terms of say for example, earlier stage companies that are maybe just the founder by themselves at the moment, they're running their business, they're running their e-commerce brand. At what level would you start to consider thinking more about would you use processes like this for contractors, you know what I mean, in terms of interview structure, style, any of these frameworks, or at what level would you be this is something we need to really consider? Does that make sense?
I think from day one. I think is your first hire is essentially the most important.
Yeah.
And going from there. Contracts it depends on the contract. It's probably a bit of a cop-out answer, but we do a labour hire division, which is, okay, I need 6 labourers on site for the next week. And he doesn't then get them into interview. He goes, mate, I've got the 6 for you. And they back his opinion. They back his advice. They go, I've met them. I've done the work. They're going to be there on Monday to do the work.
The right or wrong person could cost you millions. So that's probably where we see people more likely to come and use a service like us. If you're looking for your first admin person, no disrespect to admin people, but they might be one where you go, okay, if I get this wrong, the risk or the repercussions aren't massive for me. So it is something I'll do myself. But then you look into cost opportunity, your time is spent better elsewhere.
Very interesting, because I feel like this is, I'm really enjoying this. I feel like there's not much knowledge out there around this unless you're in it. You know, like you guys obviously doing this every day. It's like, well, this is just what you do, and you're, you know, super experienced in this. But as like maybe like the companies that do this and have their own internal divisions, but there's for myself, I'm like reading a book, like read the first 90 days. Hopefully, some of this stuff will work. It's like you just trial and error and test it on and make a lot of mistakes. Like I've hired a lot of the wrong people, and it's like, damn, that's a lot of lost opportunity. You know, time spent, money spent, like just waste essentially. So. Very, very interesting having this conversation in terms of like how you guys have done this and the process you followed. You mentioned the passion earlier in terms of like, so you feel that this is your passion, this business at the moment?
Yeah, literally my calling. I think this is, speaking to people all day, construction, I kind of landed in when I got that first role. I didn't even know how to pick up a hammer. But now 7 years later, I can kind of talk the talk and get away with knowing what I sound about, at least for the most part. But I think I found my network, I found my niche. Like this is kind of my community now, and even Southeast Queensland. It doesn't feel like a job anymore.
How does that? Because like we talked about this earlier as well, in terms of like I believe that you kind of just like forge your passion through doing something long enough to get good at it, and then you're like, oh wow, now I'm passionate because I'm good. But it seems like from your experience, this is you're like this really feels like it, and then you dedicated more time to it. Is that how it happened?
Yeah, and don't be wrong, if it was a shit paying job, probably wouldn't be as passionate.
True,
that definitely helps.
true.
I know the
Pays
work,
right.
the work I put in, right, I get the rewards for.
Sure.
But even like in my friend group, I'm the person who organises, if we're going camping, I'll book the campsite. Everyone's sorted me out. So I'm always organising, coordinating, speaking to people.
Got it.
Like even arriving here 10 years ago now, like I'm lucky I've built up so many relationships through sport and work. If I need some tiling done, I've got a tiler. If I need a plumber, I've got a plumber.
Right.
I just naturally kind of gravitate to people and build relationships with people, and it comes quite easy, which is good. Look, some people think I'm a knob for sure, but for the most part, we're okay. And then to put that and doing essentially the same thing in a job and get paid for it. How good is that?
Yeah. I love the business side of it and the impact that we can have on your business, for example.
Yeah.
Like in finance, I get to recruit in a number of different industries. And I think I mentioned earlier, lately we've been doing so many e-commerce clients. And I've almost built like an obsession over the e-commerce industry. Like I'm reading books about it so I can understand your industry more, but because it genuinely interests me. So when I go to market and I'm recruiting for a role, I'm like, this is a fucking sick brand. Like this is a really cool job. There's such a good sense of fulfillment. And then you see that impact that your person has on the company. That's where we can kind of go home at the end of the day and go, yeah, that's why we do this.
I love that. Yeah, makes complete sense. You mentioned also the concept of relationships, obviously, is like 101 of this business. And I guess like as a company, you'd come in and you'd want to like tap into that. Like that's the main reason. Like if I was to hire you guys and then you just went and posted on Seek, I'd be like, this is not, what's the point, right? Which probably some people do, right? So how do I get better at developing, fostering, nurturing, keeping these relationships? You know, because I feel like, especially with like social media, especially with like this transactional time that we live in at the moment, relationships not valued as much as it once was. And I feel like the maintenance and the kind of nurturing and the connection of like different people over time isn't really as important. It's not really valued as much. So like, how do you guys connect and nurture and keep, whether it's like a client relationship, you mentioned, you know, plumbers or anyone else, like what's the structure that you use around that? So maybe it comes naturally to you, but I'd love to unpack that. And this is personally, I'm quite bad at this as well. So
do you want me to answer from your point of view? Or
no, just like as in how do you do it overall in terms of like nurturing and keeping like good quality relationships inside of whether you're client base or whether you're candidate base? How do you keep them active?
Yeah, so we've got the systems right there. So I know my clients on the Gold Coast. I know every commercial builder. Right, I know the project manager, the site manager, the director, whatever it is. I then know all the PMs and the site managers and the CAs on the coast who are working at other companies. And it's always about consistent referrals, coffees, popping around the site with Andy, we get out there. But that is my market. And I think being niche, there might be, let's say, 1,000 people I need to speak to. So every month there's 50 days, it's 200 people a day, whatever the numbers are. There's not 50 days in a month. I just try to make it easy. That's kind of the method to it. And again, just the enjoyment piece. Like it's, you speak to everyone once and twice and 3 times through, they kind of become mates anyway, And
so you'll reach out and just check in with these people. Hey, how you going? How's business? How's that person I placed, etc.
Yeah. Well, if I know your business and I found you're building $200 million multi-resi tower, and I've just found a project manager who's done the same thing, I go, hey, Sash, I'm not sure if you're looking or not, but I know if I was in your shoes, I want to know this guy's on the market.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And then you might go, actually, Adam, I don't need him. I say, well, look, is anyone you know of? You're in the market, you're in the industry. Actually, go and speak to that builder down the road.
Got it.
Just those kind of conversations.
And I think trying to do things outside of sales as well. Like if a recruiter comes to you every time it's just selling, sell. Like, I love my podcast. So like I try to learn a bit about my clients and I'll just share a podcast with them on LinkedIn, whether it's finance specific and I'm sending it to 10 CFOs. Hey mate, what do you I found this really interesting, think you might find this valuable. Whether it's a webinar about like US tax legislation that I see, right? I'll send that to all my clients that I know trade in the US. I go, hey mate, I know you've got US operations. This might be something that really interests you.
Love that. You mentioned earlier as well in terms of when you guys first started going and investing a large amount of money into this bootcamp situation that really helped you. What was the rationale behind that? You guys like early stage into your company and then taking like a larger sum of money of the money you've just earned and then putting it back into your business, but paying something like, it's a big risk. Like how did you process that? How did you rationalize thinking that was the best thing to do?
It was a two-pronged approach. I think when we started the business, we had massive imposter syndrome. So we were like, right, let's learn as much as we can as quickly as we can. It'll still hang around
for a while, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty much. And we knew that we knew fuck all in the sense of business.
Yeah.
So we were like, we've got no other option. Because if we come out and thinking we're the boys and this is easy,
we're the boys.
Like we'd be gone by now. So
I love that. Yeah. But I mean, like in terms of taking that, like it's just a lot of people struggle with, going investing money into themselves. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a big thing. It's like, whoa, like we just made this money, hold on to it. So like, did you guys have a conversation about that? Like being like, this is exactly what we need to do to grow the company?
I don't think there's ever this big table discussion. I think it was, obviously we know Ryan Tucker does, you do really well, right? So we trust him. And we've done a bit of the work before, so we know it works.
Right.
So really it was a case of, are we serious about this or not? If we're not, we'll keep our 20 grand and then we might turn that into it. Or we're actually serious about being a weapon of a company who are way better than everyone else. And then if we are, do we think that 20 grand is a good investment?
One of our toxic ways to work it out is we just go, 20 grand, that's just one extra placement that we've got to do. But the problem is after 6 months, you've done that 20 times and you're going, shit, we got to make 20 extra placements.
So I love that conversation. Yeah. Just one more sale per month.
Yeah, it's the same way that we'd sell to you, right? Well, okay, you're going to pay us X amount, but what that buys you back your time, how much will that make you?
Yeah.
We've got to go, okay, 20,000 on a sales training course, but we think that will lift us 20%. We bill an average of X amount of dollars. That's how we're going to go and create them.
No, I just love understanding this because I think it's something that a lot of people like when you kind of have a little bit of success, sometimes it's really challenging to let go of what you've made, and it's like your rationale behind this seems to be more aligned with like, well, we really believe in ourselves and we're really big on the mission in terms of what we're doing. So like just pour more money into that. And my philosophy is also sometimes I think that people, they don't believe in themselves at all. And so like, that's why they're actually afraid to go and bet on themselves and take their little bit of money and multiply it, So you guys are like, let's fucking go.
It's that scarcity the abundance mindset, isn't it? Which I think coming from the big agency, it was scarcity. It was don't ever speak to another recruiter. Don't tell them who your jobs are. Don't talk about your clients. And then you come out of that kind of world and you see, wow, the world's actually massive. There's plenty of work for everyone. Yeah. Right? There's plenty of money to be made. So it's that more abundant mindset where it just felt like we had to do it. If we didn't, we were just kidding ourselves, wasn't it?
Yeah. And back to what you said, you've absolutely got to back yourself in business. You got to weigh up the risk and go, do you know what? We back ourselves. We're going all in here. And I think it's got us this far, mate.
Hopefully it still works. How did you go from the scarcity mindset to more, you guys seem very like bold, courageous, you know what I mean? Like, you know what you want, you're getting after it and you're pushing hard. Like it's a pretty big transition. And I think a lot of people don't make the transition and they stay in that like scarcity mindset. Was there some things that you guys did that helped to navigate through that overall?
I think even coming to the other side of the world, right? We're both English living over here. That's the big move. Then you do that and you see the life you've created here. So I think all those little steps along the way where you do take the risk and it pays off, you build up probably the trust credits in yourself and you go, well, I've took risks before and it's paid off.
Yeah.
There's a saying that we had where the only way this thing fails is if a meteor hits the earth, as in there's nothing we won't do.
I love that.
To make Harwell work. So that's quite freeing as well because it's that maximum ownership and accountability.
Yeah.
There's no one else's fault if this goes wrong. It's because we haven't done the work. We haven't learnt enough or developed enough or spoke to as many people, whatever it is. It was just the only option, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we always want more. Like that abundance mindset suits our personalities, where it's like, okay, we've achieved that, let's go on to the next thing. I don't think you can achieve that when you're holding everything really close and not willing to put things on the line every now and then.
And even people around you. I think when we left that company, like, you were only around people who've been in that company. So they think so small, right? They don't know what's out there. So then you come out, ex-recruiter have been awesome because they were guys who were 5 years ahead of us.
Right.
So they kind of have walked the path, and we learned so much from them. And then through them, we meet other people, and you kind of go, look, everyone else is taking risks. Everyone else is having a crack. Yeah. Like, what do they do that we don't? Or what are they willing to do that we're not? Yeah. And we're like, actually, there's not a lot. And I think asking for help is probably the other massive one. We're very unego driven in that sense, where
I get that a lot from you guys. Yeah.
We'll ask anyone for anything as long as how do you word this properly? As long as we're doing the work to warrant the help.
Right, I understand what you mean. I'm not asking for help, and then I'm not actually doing anything to necessitate any form of help.
Or I haven't tried to do anything, but I just want you to tell me how to do it.
Right.
That's not what we do.
Yeah.
Understood. Yeah, interesting. I like it a lot. I learned so much from this. I feel like even me just learning about like recruiting processes and how these like should work, maybe ought to work, I guess. And I hope that people listening as well, even if you're not in the stage where they might be like needing a recruiter or necessarily right now needing a recruiter, like even just listening to it, I'm like, it's such a crucial part of any company's growth, finding the right individual to help your company to grow. And you guys would have seen this thousands more times than me, but like I've witnessed the result of having the right person doing the right thing and the success it can bring you to company. Equally, the wrong person that you bring in and it's like horribly wrong. So I think it's such a noble mission that you guys are on here, and I just really want to commend you for the fucking epic work you're doing. I'm super excited. Hopefully you can find me some candidates.
Yeah, imagine if we can't. No, that'd be awkward.
After all that process.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I think Stephen Bartlett puts it perfectly. We saw him on his live tour, and he says he's built his business now to the point where his only job is recruitment.
Yeah.
He's like, I've set my business up, so I've got an expert in every single field. My job is just finding the right people, because he's like, without the right people, I can't do anything.
Could not agree. And there was another, I can't remember where I heard this, but it was like, there's a reason that the top companies in the world are constantly fighting for the best talent. It's like, that's the reason they're the best companies, because they have the best talent, you know? And it's like, all these other companies are like, oh, I'm trying to like pay a small amount of money for an average person and squeeze them really hard. It's like, what do you expect is going to happen? So, yeah.
My last little bit of advice would be, if you're not at the stage you need to recruit yet, still go and find out from other people who the best recruiter in your market is, and just say, hey, I'm probably a year, 2 years away from actually needing to buy your services. Right. But what can I do now to get set up to help me to get there? I know if someone came to us, I'd give them as much time and effort and energy as we could. As long as that trust was there, as when we do the right thing by you, we are the partner you choose down the track, right? It's that long term.
Whether that's us or someone else, those conversations that you build up over that year before you do need to recruit, when you actually go to market and you're speaking to people, you go, I've had a relationship with Sasha for a year now. I know so much about his business. I've seen their growth from day dot. Like, it sounds so much more real, and you as a candidate will put your trust in us because we know about the company.
Oh man, this is insane. I'm genuinely excited to like fire up the recruiter again and start bringing some candidates. I'm like, let's go.
I think you made a bit of money here.
This has worked much better than you guys think. No, I really appreciate it. Genuinely, super, super valuable. And I hope everyone listening can extract some value from what you guys have shared here as well. And if there are any things we can share in the resource section as well, below as well, any documents, resources, we'd love to share it with the audience as well.
Thanks so much, Sash.
Awesome.
Appreciate it,
having us, mate.
Thank you.